now that we aren't infringing copyright anymore. Nathan, you are so articulate, but Nicholas was here before you with a simple make sure to record instead of I implore you to record today's class. Okay.
Oh, no, I feel bad.
So, Nicholas, name a month that is not
December.
June. December. Okay. Um, December. Let's go back to December 2019. I have 7 choices remaining. Okay. Ooh. This is wide open. I only took 2 games from this.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so would you like a racing game or what is this? A strategy game.
I'll take the strategy game.
Okay. It just says strategy. Okay. So send me private message with your email address.
Done.
Okay. Remember, this email is coming from Humble Bundle, not from me. So don't think it's spam.
Thank you.
Okay. Send email. You are now the proud owner of something called Ancestors Legacy. Ancestors Legacy. Take command of your army as you storm through medieval Europe in an extensive series of campaigns, choosing one of 4 available nations: Viking, Anglo-Saxon, German, Slav. You will be tasked with more than just conquering, raiding, or pillaging enemy camps, villages, and towns, only by utilizing the full range of available tactical options, taking strategic advantage of the environment, and managing your temporary bases and settlements will you emerge victorious. It looks
Sounds
like
good.
Total War.
Thank you.
Sure. Sounds good. Yes, Gabe, you go.
All right. Hey, everybody. So writers are going to have another meeting tomorrow starting at 7 o'clock EST. So all the writers will be there finishing up what we got going on for our initial story plan. If anybody from tech, gameplay, or art is available at any time between 7 to 10, feel free to drop in and kind of just hear what's going on, maybe give some input so we could start kind of getting all the groups to collaborate a little bit more. And in terms of writers, try to have your detailed character sheets done before that meeting so we can go over them and make changes. And that's all I got. So there you go.
Anything from your partner in crime?
No, I'm chilling.
Okay.
Good job.
Okay. One thing that is an oversight on my part. It has come to my attention that community managers don't have a lead. So can the community managers elect or agree upon or somehow nominate a lead community manager so that should the producers have a meeting of leads, you know who is going to that meeting? Does that make sense? I get a thumbs up, an acknowledgement from a community manager. Thank you, Brian. Okay. And Gabe, don't forget to include community managers in meetings, because I want to dispel the idea that community managers are not real developers, that they are I don't know, second tier developers. Community managers in real game development are essential, and probably have the most thankless job of any, in that they actually have to deal with the games community, and some people in games communities are toxic and horrible. And coincidentally, the toxic and horrible people are generally the most outspoken. So not saying that your community is going to be toxic and horrible, but wanted to point that out, that they do angels work, and are very rarely respected for it. So, and if say you graduate or you don't graduate and you get a job as a community manager, please be proud and share that with us, because it's a job in game dev, right? Okay, so I've already talked about the missing locksmith with you guys, right? We were talking about well, I showed you some of the Jejun Institute. There's much more to the Jejun Institute, and in fact, it ran for years in San Francisco, and back when it was running, I had gone to an ARG convention, and they were the makers of Jejun were spoke at this convention, this conference. And what I learned about Jejun there is that they had spent at least $3 million up to that point on that ARG. And they expected that, and it had been running for 3 years at that point, and they expected to be able to continue running it for another 2 years. So figure 3 years, $1 million a year. So they had $5 million. And the question came up, gosh golly, where are you getting your money? Who's paying for all this? And they said, an independently wealthy artist is financing it, and they would say no more. And if you go to Amazon Prime, where the Institute, I think the Institute has been on Netflix, it has been on Prime. I bought it on Prime, so I own it. But I highly recommend watching the Institute. It's an 1.5-hour documentary about the entire course of the Jejun Institute. And it comes out in that movie that an artist named Spencer McLeod, finances the Jejun Institute. The problem with the movie is that not everyone in the movie is real. There are people who say they played it, and it ruined their lives, and they're not real. So as a documentary, what is it? Because parts of the documentary are fiction. So they're playing with reality as usual in an alternate reality game. And then there was, at the end of Latitude, what was it? Latitude Society documentary. At the end of at the end of the credits, post credits, there's a brief card that says the Latitude Society, with a website, and it's like, ooh, Jejun is over, Latitude Society is beginning. new ARG sponsored by these same people, and that was very exciting. But you couldn't get into the website, and people were waiting to figure out how to get into the website, and didn't hear, and like a year passed. And it turned out that this ARG was by invitation only. And you kind of like, it was once again San Francisco. And if you know anything about San Francisco, there's a great disparity in income and lifestyle among tech people versus, I don't know, I want to say normal people, non-tech people. So you got a lot of tech people getting invited to the Latitude Society, and upper crust people. And I know I have a friend who was invited, and he basically said, based on what I've heard, I don't want any part of this. And you know, it was weird and exciting, and another kind of installation in a corner of San Francisco. And it ran for a while, and then there was articles about it being elitist and weird and maybe a cult. And then you didn't hear anything. And in 2019, I'm not going to play this because, well, I'll probably get DMCA objections to these videos. But if you're interested, there's the trailer to a trailer for a documentary about the Latitude Society, called In Bright Axiom. I've watched it. And much like, remember I said, somebody asked me if these ARGs are dangerous, QAnon kind of things. The Latitude Society was structured like a cult, where you went on a retreat, and there was a kind of person who had answers, and they had rules, and you agreed to abide by the rules, and if you didn't abide by the rules, you were no longer told when and where the meetings were. But they insisted that they were not really a cult, but an entertainment masquerading as a cult. Right? Which begs the question, well, what's the difference? So you'll find that there are ethical questions about what they did, and eventually they got squicked out by what was happening and shut it all down. So I don't know. I think I saw it on Amazon Prime. I saw it on one of the streaming services. I watched the movie. It's a really good movie about the ethical concerns involved with pretending to be something, right? And doing it so well that people actually believe you are that thing. And at some point, so when ARG started, there was the motto of ARGs was TINAG, TINAG, which stands for "This is not a game," when in fact it is a game. And over the years, This Is Not a Game has gotten various ARGs in trouble. There was an ARG in Canada around that was selling cars. It was some kind of car, new car. Was there was espionage and intrigue, and you signed up for it, and you said, I would like to be contacted by email, by social media, by phone, and in person, right? And if that's your thing, if you're like me, I'm like, yeah, sign me up, send me all the things, right? I I have a thing that's now they sent me a quill, right? It's a green feather with a quill, um, and a bottle of ink. It's purple ink, and I believe it's glued shut. I've shown you this stuff, I think, or I showed somebody this stuff. Anyway, I'd love it if somebody showed up at my door and they were a character in an ARG. Yeah, it is. It's awesome. Look at it. Anyway, so I've got all sorts of stuff from various ARGs around the house, both student made and stuff I've signed up for. So anyway, somebody signed up a friend for this ARG, and said, oh, she'll love this, it'll be great, and gave this woman's phone number, email address, all her social media, and said, yes, contact me in person, right? And she didn't know she was signed up for this game, and suddenly she started getting weird messages from spies, and then phone calls from spies, and just through luck of the draw, she was selected to be one of very few in-person visits. And so a guy in a trench coat knocks on her door, and she freaks out because it's been a week or two of all these weird messages she's been getting, and she's all paranoid. And then suddenly there's a guy on her front porch in a trench coat and a fedora, saying he has crucial information for her, and she calls the cops. And apparently, she's totally freaked out, and eventually she brought a lawsuit against the car company and the marketing company that sponsored this ARG. And basically the marketing company said, hey, every step of the way we had a disclaimer. You could click on it and it would say, this is all fiction, you signed up for this is part of the thing that you signed up for. And she said, no, I didn't sign up for it. I was terrified by the whole thing. I wasn't going to click on any links in any of this sketchy stuff, because God knows where those links would go. And I am mentally, I have suffered damages, right? And she sued him for millions of dollars. And I honestly don't remember. I think they settled. I don't think she won or they won. I think they settled. Because it was just this huge kind of PR fiasco. But that was really the turning point in the whole "this is not a game" attitude of ARGs, where everybody was like, yeah, we're gonna just tell everybody it's a game. It's a game. Play it, don't play it, up to you. It's fiction. So just be aware. It's fun to pretend with other people who are pretending. But if somebody is distressed or seems like they're not in on the joke, or not in on the the fiction, tell them, right? You know that this is a fictional thing, right? So that's getting back to the whole don't get Dean fired, right? So going with another don't get Dean fired, please invite McKenna to your meetings. She is my eyes and ears on the ground. Yeah, don't get WPI sued. That would get Dean fired. See, it all works.
That's why it's a sub rule.
Yes, there's so
A
many.
subheading.
Right. So for instance, one year, the seed for one of the ARGs was there's a spring in Andover, I believe, somewhere west. It's near a Shaker village. And the people in this Shaker village were amazingly long lived, right? And they got all their water for centuries. Like, these Shakers regularly lived to be 90, 100 years old, right? And they drank, all the water they drank was from this spring, and the spring became known as the Shaker Fountain of Youth. So that was their seed, right? So they're planning their rabbit hole, and they're like, we're gonna have a water company who wants to take over this spring and bottle water from the Fountain of Youth. And that'll be the central conflict, is the players are going to stop them from taking over the Fountain of Youth, right? So that sounded good to me. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe you can even get to the actual place and take some pictures or some video or whatever. So they're like, oh, and as our rabbit hole, what we'll do is, in the before times when there was a campus center that people hung out in and had lunch every day, there are tables down. I don't know, maybe you do still hang out do you still hang out in the campus center? I honestly have not been to campus since last March. No, I have. In September, I came and I did a walking tour. So I have been there. Anyway, so down where they have lunch, right? They have the cafeteria, not the cafeteria, but the food court down in the campus center. There were tables over on the one side, and many times there would be companies giving out free samples of this or that food, right? So new ice cream that's going to be in the campus center, come by and get a free sample of the ice cream. Or there was this weird, they had a French fry vending machine for a while, where you put $2 in, and they actually fried the French fries right there. And this being WPI, they were very excited about sharing the technology, because essentially they weren't actual fries. You put in this potato paste and it extruded fries into boiling oil and cooked them and served them up. Except what you basically had was a big vending machine full of boiling oil. And so it would always smell like oil. Like, that smell of like boiling oil. So it was exciting like the first week, and then everybody was like, it's a stinky machine. It smells like oil, not like French fries, because nobody buys the fries because they're too expensive. Anyway, so long tangent. So their rabbit hole was, they were going to sit at one of these free sample tables in the campus center and give out free bottles of water. And I was like, oh, and you put a label on it that it's, the fountain of youth water, blah, blah. And people walk out with a little bottle of water. You buy a case of those little bottles or a couple cases and you give them out. And each one has a URL for your rabbit hole. Cool rabbit hole. And then, and I was like, that sounds great. And then in some meeting, they were like, oh, and outside the campus center, we'll have the Shakers protesting that yes, we went from having a French fry vending machine to a salad robot. Yes. How's the salad robot? Because I imagine like wilted, disgusting lettuce in that salad robot just getting caught in there. It breaks a lot. Yeah. I just imagine like you get your bowl of like rotten vegetation covered in carrots, right? I don't know. Anyway, I don't really want a salad robot. Someday we'll all have salad robots, right? So then they added this protest outside the campus center. Friends of the Shakers, because the Shakers aren't going to come out, where there would be, they'd have signs saying that this company had poisoned the water, right? And there you have it. You have your conflict.
Oh no.
Right. And
I
I'm
can
like,
see where this may be
you
not
see?
great.
You see? So
I feel like poisoned is not.
I'm
to
Joe
say that.
Joe WPI college dude, right? Or Jane WPI college lady. And somebody hands me a free bottle of water and I chug it down because I'm thirsty. And then I walk outside the campus center and there are people with signs telling me I just drank poison. What am I going to do? Am I going to be like, oh, what a fun game? Hell no, I'm going to go to health services, right? I'm going to be like, I just got poisoned. What the hell? They're saying I got poisoned. Am I poisoned? Can you take my blood? Can you test? Right. I'm going to call poison control. Right. So honestly, my TA said, Dean, they're going to say they poisoned people. So it was the day before the rabbit holes go live, it was Tuesday. It was either it was Monday. It was Monday. And they had come up with this over the weekend. And I had gone away on Friday or Thursday because it was project presentation day, hearing, oh, we're going to give away free water and saying, yeah, great. Sounds great. And I'm like, you can't do that. That's a big no. No, that is a get Dean fired. And they got all belligerent on me. They were like, but we told you this and you said it was okay. And I'm like, you told me about the giving away the water part. You didn't tell me about the people saying it's poison part. That's the part that gets Dean fired. And they're like, well, we're doing it. We planned it and we're doing it. And I'm like, do you think? Do you really think that's a good idea? Because no, you're not doing it. And there was back and forth. And I finally had to say, look, if you do that, I am going to give you all zeros for the ARG. So they were so married. They had so much invested that I had to go to that length, which seemed crazy to me. And then they were like, okay, you could have told us earlier. And I'm like, as soon as I realized what was going on, I told you. Right. So, so that is a good rabbit hole turned bad. B gets into the get dean fired. And it always seems like the getting dean fired happens over the weekend between class and the next time I have a class, something happens, and then horrible things happen. So that's why I charge my TA with going to the meetings on the weekends and making sure those things don't happen. Yes, Gabe, you say, but you are not the first. You are not the first to promise not to get dean fired. So,
Yeah, one huge problem is it's kind of like rubber ducky programming in some way. Like you get so pigeonholed into
Yeah.
like you think this is a good idea, and it takes an outside perspective to be like, guys, what if they call poison control? That
it's
might
almost
be a
like they're in an
problem.
alternate reality, right?
There you go.
So, 1 year, I'll give you another one. 1 year, they were going to put a story in the campus newspaper, the Institute, right? Not the Institute, it was Newspeak or whatever the campus. They've changed the name a couple of times. Tech News, right? Instead of the water is poisoned, just make it they're stealing water from the shakers and it's super immoral. Yes, sure, exactly. Don't tell people they're poisoned. So one of the people in the class worked for the campus newspaper and said their ARG was UFO related. I forget the seed, but it was UFOs, right? So I'm going to put a story in the newspaper about mysterious lights being spotted over the last week, hovering over the quad. Right. And I'm like, okay, sounds fine. Maybe some contact info. If you see mysterious lights over the quad, talk to this person, and that gets us to a website or, whatever. That was on Friday, or on Thursday, something like that. And the newspaper comes out and it says the story is that there was it says DDoS attack on WPI network, net ops baffled, right? And in the body of the story, it said they were still investigating whether student information had been compromised. Where were the lights over the quad? Don't see any lights over the quad in that story. What and yes, exactly. It turns out the board of trustees are interested in what's going on at WPI and quite often read the student newspaper online. You'd be amazed, Carrie. So yeah. So the board of one of the trustees saw this and said, that's lawsuit territory. We're on the hook for millions of dollars if we've lost student information to a hacking attempt, and told the president that. President, of course, called NetOps, or actually the head of IT. It went from board of trustees to president to head of IT. Head of IT looks at the logs and says, I've got no attacks listed in the logs in the last 2 weeks. And yeah, well, that is a question. And maybe, and so he calls the head of NetOps and said, "Are you falsifying the logs? What is this story in the student newspaper?" So the head of NetOps calls the advisor of the student newspaper and says, "What is this story?" Advisor of the student newspaper calls the editor-in-chief, student, says, what the hell's going on? Where'd you get this story? Oh, that's by the kid who's in that crazy class that the IMGD professor teaches. Right. And by the time my phone rang, um, I had seen the article and face palmed. And so I had a very angry NetOps head say, "What the hell?" And I'm like, "I am so sorry." Like he was waiting for a fight, and I'm like, "This shouldn't have happened. This is entirely, well, last I heard it was lights over the quad. I will talk to the kid. We will." And so that was the first year that we had to publish disclaimers everywhere. We had to publish a retraction in the student newspaper. That was where I got the achievement of Get Dean Scolded, because I had to eat serious crow for like 2 weeks in order to not get fired. And after that, the student newspaper wouldn't publish our fictional stories anymore. Although we have gotten things into the horoscope. Just saying. Because horoscopes
No,
are
you can't say that
It's a
without.
load of hooey anyway. So like,
They're
It's a
fiction.
load of. Okay, that I think it's bullshit. How do you? Who's gonna read that though? Other than the crazy people who will believe that it's true.
Well,
And now-
so basically the horoscope that week was all about the ARG. Every prediction was very clearly like related to every other prediction. So if you read all of them, you got a website, and it was a cool little puzzle. And apparently the student newspaper horoscopes were known for being, I mean, it's WPI. They're very much made up by, like, it was that year there was one person doing the horoscopes every week. And they would make stuff up, or be like, "You will," they were WPI centric horoscopes, "You will bomb a final exam this week, but fear not, you will meet a curious stranger while you're failing your final exam," right? So whatever, they would goof on horoscopes all week. Okay.
But fail not. You won't fail them that bad.
Yeah.
Like,
So those are probably the worst. One didn't happen, and one did happen and changed everything. So those are kind of the dangers. So I want to show you another rabbit hole. This one was a video on a website that came out one day and immediately started making the rounds. It went viral before viral was a thing, because it was 2012. I don't know. Was Twitter a thing in 2012? Probably. I don't know. Anyway,
in 2012, definitely. If
okay.
it was like 2010, no.
Was it 2012? I don't know. Yeah, this went up on July 12th, 2012, Anyway, the website is
Launched
gone,
in
and
2006.
so okay, they've been around a while. So I guess I saw it on Twitter. I don't know. I forget where I first saw it, because that day, like 15 people emailed me a link to it saying, Dean, you got to look at this. This is right up your alley. Right. So I will share this with you. It was on a website called This Is My Milwaukee.com, which is now gone. Share. I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's 11 minutes long.
This is my Milwaukee.
This is my Milwaukee.
This is my Milwaukee.
This is my Milwaukee, too. Why not make it yours? From the glitz of the Canning District to the slow jazz down by the piers, there's always something cooking in Milwaukee. I'm Terry Nanny. Milwaukee's been getting a lot of press recently. Not all of it good. Surely you know what I'm referring to. But the story that's not being reported is that of a vibrant city, getting better every day. Families, good jobs, culture, high technology. Still not convinced? Join me for a closer look.
Okay, so I don't know if you noticed, but all those scenes are not from Milwaukee. They're all from Manhattan. I've never been to Milwaukee. I've been to Manhattan. You can actually see the Circle Line at one point, which is the ferry that goes around the island of Manhattan, and it's tourists. So that's weird. Also, just the style of it. I'm gonna fast forward a bit. Okay. And share again. Bing, bing, bing. I just like this.
Great views. Class G certified.
Milwaukee, step up to the streets.
By now, you've probably decided to move to Milwaukee. But relocating isn't easy, especially if you've got teenagers. You'll certainly have to have that big family talk. But before you do that, let me give the kids some fun facts about Milwaukee. Have your wife bring the children into the room during this temporary pause. Sorry, grown-ups. This section's for teens only. Kindly leave the room. Hey, teens. You're moving to Milwaukee. It's America's 22nd largest city. Its chief export is black seed.
Teens.
Milwaukee's an awesome town for teens. Skateboarding, hamburgers, church, toys. You can hoop it up with your friends as long as you follow a few simple instructions and stay out of Sector 21. Here's how.
Teens.
Rule 1, travel in groups wherever you go. Rule 2, never leave home without your rebreather and a flare gun. And Rule 3, if your party is being chased by Godseed fragments, make your way to the nearest structure rated Class K or greater. Don't worry, all our schools are rated at least Class L. And talk about school spirit. Since we're still repopulating the classrooms, there are plenty of opportunities to get involved.
Sit down. I will not
Put that down. Throw them to the Godseed fragments.
Leave the room and invite your parents back. The kids seem excited.
Milwaukee.
So there you go. Something's happening in Milwaukee. If you're a teenager, seems like the place to be. Seems like fun. You gotta bring your rebreather and your flare gun with you, and avoid Godseed fragments, and possibly get to a shelter rated K or above. The interesting thing, of course, it's a day like any other. I watch this. Everybody emails it to me, and it's on a website. Like I said, it's now actually. Let's check. I haven't checked recently. Yes, go to site. Yeah, it's gone. But they've made a bunch. So This Is My Milwaukee was actually 2008. Sorry, not 2012. And they've made a bunch of other things since. One of the things it had was down in the corner of the website. It was just a frame that said, "This is my Milwaukee," and then the video. And then there was a counter on one corner that seemed to be counting down from a large number. And in the other corner was Milwaukee Chamber of Commerce, some address, and a phone number, right? Now, remember, in the Missing Locksmith, it became an ARG when you interacted with characters, right? So I'm like, oh, I'm going to call this number and I'm going to get some sort of recording, and that'll be my start. It'll ask me to do something or whatever, right? So I waited until class. I was like, you want to call? And we were in this class, and I'm like, let's call. So I opened my flip phone and dialed the number and put it on speaker so everybody could hear, figuring it would play a recording. And this is why you should never do something in class blind, because somebody answered the phone and said, "Milwaukee Chamber of Commerce, this is Joe. What can I do for you?" And I'm like, hi. I'm thinking of moving to Milwaukee. And he's like, "Awesome. Great. Glad to hear it. Where are you coming from?" And I'm like, just outside of Boston. He's like, "Really? I didn't even know there were still people out there." How something like, "How are you planning on getting here?" And I was like, "I think I was gonna go out 290 to maybe 84 and see where that took me." He's like, "Oh, you go by the high, you might want to avoid the Badlands." And I'm like, "The Badlands?" He's like, "Yeah, are you coming with a family?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm coming with a family." "Oh, geez. Well, you might better be prepared. Take a rebreather." And I'm going back and forth. And about 2 minutes in, he's like, "I can't hear you. It's breaking up." And I don't know if he was doing it or if it was actually breaking up, but it broke up and I lost the call. And I was like, "Oh my God, that was awesome." Right. And then I immediately tried to call back, couldn't get him again. It wouldn't, it rang and rang and rang. And at the time there were various forums for ARG interested people. And this had already popped up in the "Is this an ARG" section of the forum, because most of forums devoted to ARGs are, "Is this an ARG?" And then you find out, no, it's just a crazy person on the internet. Yeah, you get a lot of those. Or you get a video of, like, I used to stop, there would be like torture and horror, and they'd be like, "Is this an ARG?" And I'm like, "I don't know, but if it is, I ain't playing." So, don't go there. Maybe call the cops on that one, because if it ain't an ARG, then people are getting hurt. So don't do that. So a whole bunch of people started calling the number and getting through to somebody. And Joe, it was always Joe during the day, during business hours. And then after 5, it would be Kevin, and he wouldn't answer nearly as much. And Kevin was surly and didn't like people. And on this forum, we started comparing our conversations and piecing together information about what the world was like around Milwaukee. There had been some kind of apocalypse. There were maybe aliens, maybe nuclear. We weren't sure. It led to all sorts of stuff that went on for somebody calculated the countdown was based on the number that it was and how fast the numbers were moving. It was going to be months before the countdown reached 0, right? It was like April. And they figured it out. They timed how often a number moved and said, this is going to be over in January, right? So we had lots of time to play. And there were weird things. Things happen, and I'll tell you more stories about it come Thursday. Please include a lead community manager. Please include McKenna. Don't forget, Last Right Club is due Thursday. I still haven't gotten all the right clubs done. And TikTok. Thursday is our last meeting this week because Friday is project presentation day. We won't be meeting. And I will see you on Thursday. Okay.
Kenna, feel free to join any of the meetings that you see pop up in Discord.
Yeah, no worries. I will. I've been, or at least for the writers meeting, I just sort of popped in to make sure that everything they were deciding on was okay, and then just sort of popped out to let them do their thing. Hope that's okay.
And Brian is going to be our lead community manager, so shout out to Brian for that.
Okay, awesome. Could you somehow indicate that on the sheet?
Sure.
Thanks. Okay, See y'all Thursday.